A family of 3 was tragically wiped out, and no one knew who died in the house. It wasn't until the smell of corruption spread throughout the community that everyone knew that his family had been in trouble for more than 6 months after calling the police. But what really makes the neighbors' scalps tingle is not this. But during these 6 months, there are many neighbors who often see lights in their homes late at night and figures walking back and forth. Was this not haunted? So, when we carried away the body, more than half of the people in the community ran away in an instant, and those who voted for their relatives and friends did not dare to live in this community. But Rao was like this, and a 4th body still appeared in the house. It is the season when spring flowers bloom all over the city, but the Yuling community is stinky. The smell was like 10,000 dead mice bursting collectively in the ventilation duct, permeating every window and every door crack, wrapping around the nose of every resident, lingering. It's been more than half a month. Soon after the heating was stopped, this smell was there, from seemingly insignificant to more and more intense. At first, the residents thought that someone had died a rat and did not dispose of the corpse, which led to this stench, and did not care. Until the flavor gets stronger and stronger. It's suffocatingly thick. The residents finally couldn't stand it anymore and decided to go to the door one by one to find out the source of the smell. Eventually, everyone found Building 6. The residents covered their mouths and noses like flies chasing carrion and investigated layer by layer, and finally stopped at the door of Ben's house on the 5th floor. The air here almost condensed into a solid, and the smell was so fierce that it hit people on the head. They decided to knock on the door to see how many rats had died in Ben's house to smell so big. But no matter how they knocked on the door, the Ben family just couldn't open the door. The knock on the door became more and more anxious from a polite knock, and finally it was directly smashed. Ben, open the door. Something stinks in your house. Ben, open the door quickly. No one answered. What about property? Call the property. The property came, and no one answered after knocking for a long time. Oliver on the 4th floor smacked his lips. Speaking of which, it seems like I haven't seen Ben go downstairs to play chess for half a year. Yes, his wife hasn't seen groceries for a long time. Last month I was walking my dog at night, and I clearly saw that there were lights in his house, and there were people shaking. Yes, there must be someone who often leaves the lights on in the middle of the night. Someone must. The more everyone talked, the more they felt that something was wrong. Call the police. As soon as the police car drove into the community, the smell rushed up enthusiastically. Captain Gung's face changed instantly, lowered the car window, and took a sip. Damn, what the hell is this dead mouse? This is the smell. Everyone covered tightly. After listening to the property and residents' reports, we observed and found that the balcony of the neighbor's house could be turned over to enter Ben's house. So we decided to climb over the wall from the neighbor's house to find out. Colleague Zach skillfully climbed over the partition wall, stepped on the narrow edge, and smashed a piece of glass on Ben's balcony with a baton. The broken glass fell to the ground with a clatter. He reached in, pushed open the latch, pushed open the window, and just leaned in halfway. Just one glance. Really, it's just a glance. He was like being rammed by an electric baton, and a whimper, choked by extreme fear, erupted in his throat. He retracted his hands and feet, crawled back to the balcony with a rolling belt, tore off his mask, and spat out with a wow. No, no way. Get a gas mask. Full body protection. Quick. When we stepped into that space fully armed, we realized that Zach's reaction was no way exaggerated. That's not a room. It was a coffin. A decaying coffin. Sight, smell, and even hearing were completely destroyed by the indescribable horror at that moment. Time is rotten. Rotten into a devastated and strangely colored filth. Furniture, flooring, ceilings. Every inch of space is smeared with traces left by the decomposition of the depth of death. The buzzing sound is the background sound, where thousands of flying maggots have settled and multiplied, forming a vast white and wriggling ocean. I suddenly felt my stomach turn upside down, and the filter element of the protective mask seemed to fail instantly, and the smell went directly into the Tian Ling cover. The world is spinning. At that moment, there was only one thought in my head that was screaming wildly. Fuck. This line of work can't be done anymore. I won't do how much money I give. The first thing that came into sight was a highly decomposed female corpse in the kitchen. She was lying face down, like a burst sack, and her original form had long since disintegrated into a blurred solid. The dark brown and almost black putrefactive juice burst out from under her, soaking a large piece of tiles, dried up and hardened and bonded with oil and dust to form a shocking, foul-smelling hard shell. Barely recognizable as the fabric of the clothes, it was tightly attached to the swollen and then collapsed body, becoming a hotbed of maggot carnival. I seemed to hear the crackling sound of my scalp popping. Continuing in, the scene in the master bedroom is even more palpitating. A male corpse was paralyzed on the bedside floor, facing the sky on its back. His posture was extremely distorted. One hand was eerily stretched up, and his 5 fingers were curled up, as if he was desperately trying to grab something at the last moment of his life. The sweater on his body was roughly cut by the sharp blade, exposing the damaged human tissue underneath. Most of the sheets were torn off, splattered with splattered and rubbed black-brown blood, telling of the fierce and desperate resistance that had occurred here. The door to the small bedroom was ajar, and the third body was curled up in the corner behind the door. He shrank into a tiny mass, and the corpse showed a terrible contradiction. Part of the body was shriveled and black from dehydration, and the skin was close to the bone, showing a waxy, dull yellow, while the other part was still swollen and rotten. This blurred blend of the boundaries of life and death makes this corpse particularly terrifying. He was the one who seemed to want to escape the most in this house of death, but ended up falling in the place closest to the exit. Even the old detectives who have handled many bloody cases can't help but vomit from the back of their throats in the face of this scene. The forensic doctor stood in the middle of the messy living room, motionless for a long time. I don't know where to start. Needless to say, just a glance shows that death is by no means a recent occurrence. The breath of death that penetrated every inch of the walls and floors did not have enough time to form. There were dry and black blood stains everywhere at the scene. Splashing, rubbing, dripping, a variety of forms all over the floor, walls, and even ceiling form an eerie abstract painting. Between the bloodstains, there are traces of trampling and dragging. Trace inspection, sampling, and search for valid evidence. We all took our places, worked in silence, and no one said a word. Time seems to have completely broken its neck here. All the chaos, blood, and death were pressed to pause, leaving only our own heavy breathing in our protective suits. I looked around, my eyes swept over the overwhelming blood, and suddenly saw a wall calendar from last year hanging on the wall. Caught in a rusty iron clip, the date is stuck on October 24th, 2007. I looked at the forensic doctor in surprise. This can't be the day of the accident, right? It depends on the level of corruption on the scene, and this point in time, it's almost the same. From the end of October to now, it's been half a year. How could it be that the body hasn't yet? Not white bone yet. Don't forget, the past 6 months have basically been low-temperature autumn and winter, and now spring has just warmed up. The formation of this decomposed, partially dried wax mixture of the corpse is completely normal. The specific time of death will wait for a detailed autopsy to be finalized. A bold neighbor confirmed that the 3 horrific bodies were the head of the household, Henry, the hostess Susan, and their son Ben. But the neighbor immediately showed a puzzled expression and added hesitantly, "Officer, look at what you look like. It's this family. But looking at this, you have to die for a while, right? Preliminary judgment, almost half a year. That's absolutely impossible." The neighbor seemed to have been stung by a scorpion, and his face turned white. Why is it impossible? His family, his house is often lit up. I'm not the only one who has seen it. Many people in the community have seen it, especially just after the new year, who was Ben's colleague, a colleague from Ben's factory, came to him, and the lights in the house were brightly on. But no matter how much I knocked, no one opened it. The young man was also of violent temper, thinking that Ben was deliberately hiding, and in a fit of anger, pull his electric switch. Pull the switch. Yes. Thinking about turning off the electricity, The people inside should come out and take a look, right? Outcome. The lights are out, but people, they still haven't come out. The young man pulling the switch is David, a colleague in Ben's factory. When he learned that Ben's family had died tragically and had been dead for half a year, he was so frightened that his voice split. This is absolutely impossible. I went to his house to find him a few years ago. There must be someone in the house. Someone? Have you seen anyone with your own eyes? I stared at him, not letting go of any subtle expression. People don't see it, but it must be inside. David's emotion. I just can't open the door. I'm so angry. What are you doing at Ben's house? Find him at work. He was absent from work for no reason and did not ask for leave. The phone kept turning off when I called it, and the workshop director knew that we lived close, so he asked me to ask. I've been here several times, and I've been eating behind closed doors every time. That time I deliberately dragged it until dark, thinking that I should be at home at night. Right? He said it bluntly, swore that there was definitely someone in Ben's family that night. When I walked downstairs to them, I clearly saw the window on the 5th floor with the lights on, but as soon as I climbed to his door, before I could catch my breath, there was a snap inside, and the lights went out. If I knock on the door again, no one will pay attention. I was so angry that I slammed the door. My hands hurt, and no one opened the door. I was puzzled at the time. I was evil. Obviously, the light was still on just now, and it was obvious that I went upstairs and deliberately turned it off. Don't bring this to avoid debts, right? Besides, I'm not a debt collector. I held back the fire, pretended to go downstairs and left, but actually hid in the dark shadow of the flower bed downstairs and stared. I waited for more than 10 minutes, and sure enough, the light came on again. I immediately rushed up, and there was another bang, and the door was about to be smashed through, still unresponsive. I put my ear to the door panel and heard footsteps inside. This makes me angry. I saw the electric switch box next to his door, and the fire came up. Okay, you pretend not to open the door, right? I'm going to force you out. I broke the box and directly threw down the main gate. I squatted at the door and waited, thinking that now you have to come out and see what's going on, right? Outcome. No, just don't open the door. I didn't give up and pushed the gate up again, and I tossed and turned like this several times. But that door just won't open. The lights inside were completely extinguished after I pulled the brakes, and they never turned on again. I spent more than an hour at that door. In the end, I had no choice but to leave. David is not alone. We visited the residents of the community, and many neighbors confirmed that during this long 6 months, the lights at Ben's house did turn on every 3 or 5 times in the middle of the night, and the curtains occasionally reflected blurry and shaking figures. It is precisely because of these signs of living that everyone ignores the increasingly strong stench, thinking that the Ben family is busy buying a house for their son and marrying a daughter-in-law, leaving early and returning late. Now that the truth has been revealed, a family of 3 has long become a rotten corpse. These testimonies instantly turned into the most terrifying ghost stories. The entire community was completely blown up, and panic spread like a plague. Gossip has become an innumerable version. Some say that the Ben family of 3 died, too unjustly, and the ghost lingered, and they came back every night to find the murderer to ask for their lives. Some say that Ben's family can't let go of their physical bodies and come back over and over again to see their decay. The most widely circulated theory is that this family of 3 did not know that they were dead, and their souls were still trapped in that house, repeating their activities every day. For a time, everyone in Yulin community was in danger and talked about ghosts. As soon as it gets dark, every door is locked. Many people were so frightened that they dragged their families overnight and fled to their hometown in the countryside for refuge, as if they would be captured by the wrong souls of the Ben family and become scapegoats. The forensic autopsy report finally determined the exact time of death. The time of death of the 3 deceased was October 24, 2007. In other words, they have been silently rotting in cold despair for more than 6 months. The identification results showed that Henry was strangled with a wire and stabbed 6 times. Susan was stabbed 9 times, and the wounds were deep enough to show the bone. and eventually died of excessive blood loss. The most strange thing is his son, Ben. He was stabbed 5 times by the murderer, and after being seriously injured, he was strangled by the same type of wire. 3 different crime locations, 3 slightly different but extremely cruel methods of murder. This kind of sequential and angry massacre is difficult for one person to complete in a short period of time. It is clear that there is more than one, if not 2 killers. Preliminary trace results support this determination. In addition to Ben's family, the footprints extracted from the house were mixed with shoe prints of at least 2 other strange men, with varying degrees of wear. Moreover, the murderer came prepared, leaving no valuable fingerprints except for these footprints that could not be completely erased. But all of this cannot explain the core and most creepy mystery. What exactly is it that keeps the lights on late at night after death has ruled the house for more than 6 months? Let the footsteps echo in the empty house. Let the shadows sway behind the curtains. We try to find answers in this ruin soaked in death, even if it's just a hint of clue. Unfortunately, however, half a year has passed since the bloody incident. Time is the most ruthless complicity. Now, it is difficult to uncover the truth only with on-site investigation. But no matter how difficult it is, you have to check. On the first day, as soon as the preliminary autopsy was completed, we removed 3 highly decomposed bodies from the scene as quickly as possible. This is a top priority. The strong and fainting smell of corpses and rumors flying all over the sky have put the entire community on the verge of collective collapse. If the bodies are not removed as soon as possible, panicked residents may drag their families and escape in the next second. Although the residents strongly demanded that the haunted house be thoroughly cleaned and disinfected, we resolutely cordoned off the site. Cleaning is absolutely impossible now. The truth of this massacre is still buried under this mess. And although maggots and corruption have devoured almost everything, the more such a scene is, the more it is necessary to look for clues that may be overlooked inch by inch with brushes and tweezers, like archaeologists. We have no choice. We can only ask this house for the truth, and all subsequent investigations must be based on the clues here. To be precise, we are racing against time, snatching the evidence left by the murderer from maggots and decaying wreckage. After days and nights of sleepless fighting, we almost lifted the floor. Fortunately, in a relatively well-preserved corner of the bedroom, we finally extracted a few crucial footprints. These footprints are more valuable than before. One of them is a bloody footprint left by the crime with blurred edges but still recognizable. The others, on the other hand, are even more bizarre. They're clearly stacked on top of the dry blood, left by someone who entered the scene and trampled on them after the crime. What is even more chilling is that the footprints of these latecomers entered the room at different times. This means that in the 6 months after the tragedy, there were several times when they sneaked back into this purgatory on Earth. Who is it? Our first reaction: the murderer. According to the classical profiling of criminal behavior, some murderers will return to the crime scene uncontrollably. Some of them are conceited that their methods are seamless, and they return to confirm that the scene has not been discovered, and enjoy the pleasure of controlling the overall situation and playing with the police. Some of them hastily left key evidence, such as a murder weapon, a small item of his own, and the more they thought about it, the more afraid they became, and they had to come back to find and destroy it. What's more, out of a distorted and dark psychological need, he needs to return to the place where he created his masterpiece and relive the excitement and satisfaction brought by killing, which is a pathological possession and ultimate blasphemy of the victim. This theory is impeccable in textbooks, but looking at the bloody massacre scene in front of us, we feel that this theory cannot be established at all. What kind of pervert can appreciate in such a place not enough once, but can come back to the scene of the murder again and again? What did he take here? Do you have your own back garden? However, after more careful technical comparison, one detail made the case even more confusing. One of the clear size 39 shoe prints, according to dust settlement simulations, was left at least 3 months after the crime. The previous ones were all size 43 and had different sole patterns, so it was impossible to tell if they were worn by the same person. Who is this size 39 shoe print? What did he do so long after the incident? The murderer invited him to observe the scene? The mystery is getting bigger and bigger. Forget it. First, dig out these footprints and then do something else. Captain Gung said. After finishing these ground tasks, he quickly rummaged through the boxes and cabinets to find money. That's right, it's just looking for money. If you can't find the money, you can check in the direction of robbery and murder. Is there any need to ask? It must be robbery and murder. The house has already been turned upside down by the murderer. But once the head speaks, we still need to go through it again like a sieve. At that time, if there was a son at home who wouldn't have a few passbooks as bride price, buy a house and marry a daughter-in-law. However, the living room and master bedroom were almost dug 3 feet into the ground by us, not to mention the passbook. Not even a steel hammer was found. I rubbed my sour waist and straightened up and said to Captain Gung, a typical burglary when the owner finds out, kills and silences him, and directly ends the nest. When we visited that day, almost every community knew that their family was going to buy a house for their son and marry a daughter-in-law, and it was estimated that they had leaked money. You see, in this house, it's like raiding a house. Clothes are thrown everywhere, and all the drawers are pulled out and poured out. Also, there's a brand new computer keyboard in the living room, but the host and monitor are missing, and it is estimated that it has also been by hand. Before the words fell, a scream suddenly came from the second bedroom. It's Zach again. The second bedroom is a relatively clean area in the entire haunted house, and there is no horrific blood stains everywhere. The furnishings are also extremely simple. An old-fashioned wardrobe plus a desk. The desk was special, made from a huge fuchsia old wooden box, covered with a washed blue plaid cloth, and pressed with a glass plate the same size as the box. I recognize this kind of box. It is estimated to be Susan's dowry because I remember that my grandmother's house had such a pair of boxes, very large, and there was a box shelf underneath which was used as a desk, and the height was just right. Zach was extremely excited when he checked the box, with a neat countertop and a few old photos pressed under the glass panel, out of place with the chaos around him. He speculated that this may be a corner left by the murderer, and there was likely a passbook or important belongings hidden underneath. As a result, when he opened the lid of the box, his eyes went black. There was a person inside who looked at him. Zach was also unlucky. When I first came to the team for an internship, I encountered such a difficult case. He was already frightened to the point of insanity. He rolled out of the second bedroom and grabbed Captain Gung. Murderer. The murderer is in the box. The people in the box did look like the murderer, because he has a knife in his hand. But he is not alive. He was the fourth body in the house. The forensic doctor came again, pinching his nose. The preliminary autopsy at the scene gives us 5 pieces of information. First, this person did not die at the same time as the family of 3, at least 3 months later. Second, this person was strangled to death, and he was strangled very hard, with a fracture of laryngeal cartilage and a fracture of the hyoid bone. Third, this person is around 24 or 25 years old, 169 tall, thin, and will not weigh more than 110 pounds during his lifetime. Fourth, the shoes worn on the person's feet match the size 39 shoe print. Fifth, after comparing the wounds, the knife in this person's hand is the knife that killed Ben's family of 3. We held a small meeting on the spot and deduced a possibility. This was one of the murderers, and then the murderers, I don't know if it was 2 or 3, had an infighting. The reason for this infighting is temporarily unknown, but there's a high probability that it may be because the stolen money from the robbery is unfairly divided, because so far we have not found a penny. These murderers must have been acquaintances, because the doors and windows were intact and there was no trace of destruction. One of these murderers must live in this community, because such a big computer is very eye-catching. It's a good thing to find a murderer. Even if it's dead, at least this seemingly clueless case has a little light. But we didn't dare to carry the fourth body out. If you carry another corpse down, the sky and the community will collapse. Captain Gung pondered for a moment. First, asked the property to identify this person, whether he is a resident of this community, and then release the news when he carries it down, saying that the murderer of this case has been found and committed suicide out of fear of crime, so that the other murderers will think that this is over, and then they will let their guard down and show their... But when the property came, it was said that it was not a resident of the community. But the property pointed to the workwear on the deceased body and said, "This is Ben's worker, wearing the same workwear as Ben." We immediately called David, and as soon as David saw the dead, he exclaimed, "Isn't this Alex? Fucking he hasn't come back since he went back to his hometown during the spring festival. How could he be at Ben's house? Is there any conflict between Alex and Ben?" No, they are both very good, because they're both the kind of people who are loyal and honest and taciturn. Alex is a foreigner. I heard that he still has no father or mother, and he lives with his uncle, so he often goes to Ben's house to have a meal or something, and the two are very good. By the way, since Ben didn't come to work, he has come to find it a few times, and the two of us still came together a few times. You wouldn't suspect Alex was the murderer, would you? There is this suspicion. Just kidding, this is absolutely impossible. Alex is thin and small, he doesn't dare to kill a chicken. To be honest, we suspect not only Alex as the murderer, but also David as an accomplice. After all, only the two of them appeared at Ben's doorstep again and again. But now it seems that this reasoning seems wrong. If David is one of the murderers, then he will definitely have to desperately blame Alex instead of speaking for Alex. Things are getting more and more complicated, and we have found many problems after a day of difficult investigation, such as the ID card, bank card, and mobile phone of this family of three are also missing. The doors and windows of the scene were intact, and there was no sign of prying them, which indicates that the murderer knocked on the door or opened the door with a key, entered the crime scene, and committed the crime. Based on this, it can be inferred that the murderer and the deceased were familiar with each other and must have been acquaintances. All the clues on the scene are limited to this. The following is a survey of the social relationships of Ben's family of three. It is understood that Ben's family of three is honest and gets along well with the surrounding neighbors and has never heard of a grudge against anyone. Ben's best friends are only David and Alex, and he usually doesn't have any intersection with people in society. It is worth considering that there is only one possibility that the murderer lives in the same neighborhood as Ben's family, or may live in the same building as Ben's family. With this speculation, we immediately visited more than 2,000 residents in the community, focusing on young men with criminal records, lazy food, and idleness. Soon, a name surfaced: Jack. This person lives downstairs from Ben's house, is a senior gambler who is addicted to gambling, owes a lot of usury, and his bad habit of stealing chickens and dogs is known far and wide. More importantly, it is rumored that he has a unique skill. He can file out the key that can open the door by feeling without the original key. Just look at it a few times. All features are perfectly embedded in our profile of the murderer. We couldn't hold back our excitement and immediately summoned Jack in accordance with the law and at the same time conducted a raid on his residence. As a result, it seems to fully confirm our conjecture. The search process was a fruitful harvest. Not only did we dig out several keys of unknown origin and different models in his messy bedroom drawer, but we also found a large stack of cash tied with rubber bands under his bedboard. The fatigue of the past few days was almost swept away, and the hands of colleagues holding the stolen money trembled with excitement. Grandma's legs, the mountains and rivers are suspicious, and there is no way. And the willows are dark, and the flowers are bright, and there is another village. Finally caught the fox's tail. However, in the face of ironclad evidence, Jack cried out for grievances and swore. He admitted that his hands and feet were not clean, but flatly denied any involvement in the murder upstairs. "Officer, give me 10 dog guts. I don't dare to kill." His face was blurred with snot and tears, and he pointed to the pile of keys and cash and hurriedly explained, "Then, that key is true that I stole it, but it definitely doesn't belong to Ben's family. It's worthy. It's my brother-in-law's family. This money was also stolen by me while my brother-in-law's family was traveling and slipped in with the key. I'm a bastard. I'm not human. I stole my relatives. but I really didn't kill anyone. Pass on his brother-in-law. Captain Gung's face turned pale and ordered. As a result, after urgent verification, none of the keys could open the door of Ben's house, but there was one that could open the door of his brother-in-law's house, and the money was also proved to be his own by his brother-in-law. The brother-in-law was so angry that he ran away on the spot in the bureau, and if we hadn't stopped him, Jack would have to lie down directly in the hospital. In the end, after strict footprint comparison and technical review, we reluctantly confirmed that Jack was a thief, but not a murderer. After Jack's suspicion was eliminated, our investigation was in trouble again. The clues are interrupted and the direction is lost. Captain Gung called everyone together and sorted out the case for the third time. Eventually, the focus once again converges on that primitive motive, money. The whole community knows that Ben's family saves money to buy a house, and there must be savings at home. If the murderer took the passbook, he would never let it become waste paper. Go to the bank to find it. We pounced on the banking system. The sheer volume of queries is almost devastating. It's been half a year, not half a day. But this time, Lady Luck finally favored us once. A crucial transaction record surfaced at 10:17 a.m. the day after the murder of Ben's family. A man wearing a dark jacket and a peaked hat, holding the ID card of the head of the household, Henry, used Ben's ID card and passbook password to pick it up twice at the counter of the Chungshi Savings Office Ben's 2 large-time deposits due and wiped out the balance in the current account. This record stunned Captain Gung. Damn, I deliberately released a smoke screen to get him to withdraw the money. But he went to get it after killing the fucking person. How impatient is this? Several withdrawal slips were urgently sent back to the technical team. In a laboratory, technicians carefully process every inch of paper with developer and laser. Time passed minute by minute, and finally, in an inconspicuous corner of the voucher signature column, a clear, threaded thumb fingerprint was clearly revealed. Just as we were arguing fiercely about whether to carry out large-scale fingerprinting of the entire community and fearing to startle the snake, a resident who was a little impatient from repeated visits provided an almost random message in the chat. Oh yes, who do you think is suddenly rich? Is the gambler Sean across from Ben's house count? Last year, I was so poor that I mortgaged the van for 500 yuan and owed a lot of debt. But at the end of last year, it suddenly became wider, the debt was paid off, the car was redeemed, and I got rich all of a sudden. Opposite the door? Yes, he lives across the door from Ben. It stands to reason that he lives closest to Ben, and he should be the first to smell the stench. When we are all smoked to death, he says he has rhinitis and can't smell it. Do you think it's strange? Then check the right door first. This one who suddenly made a fortune. In less than 5 minutes, 2 field police officers found Sean in the chess and card room of the community who was playing cards with a cigarette in his mouth. The process of extracting fingerprints is simple and fast. And when the technician places his fingerprint sample and the fingerprint on the withdrawal form into the comparator side by side, the comparison results are tight. We perked up and immediately searched Sean's house. Sean is a year older than Ben, which is why he was able to get money with Ben's ID card, and is still a bachelor. The house was disorganized, filled with the smell of smoke and musty. We pulled out 2 old pairs of shoes from a broken cardboard box under his bed. A size 43 nubuck shoe, and another pair of sneakers with dried blood on the soles. After comparison, the results were unsuspenseful. The wear characteristics and spacing of the shoes were completely consistent with the 2 key shoe prints extracted from the bedroom and living room at the crime scene. The evidence is like a mountain, sitting under the cold light of the interrogation room, facing the fingerprint identification report and footprint comparison photos spread out in front of him. The confused expression on Sean's face peeled off little by little, his shoulders collapsed, and he let out a long breath. I said, "Sean, I have nowhere to go. I owed a lot of debt, and the car was worth 500 yuan, and I was blocked every day, and my relatives hid when they saw me. I have nowhere to go. I've been eyeing Ben's house for a long time. Who in the whole community doesn't know that his family wants to buy a house?" The 2 old immortals spent their lives frugally just to marry a daughter-in-law for that stuffy-gourd son. I didn't want to mess with him either, but you fucking looked down on me. Ben met me in the community that day and wanted to educate me, Sean, it's not young. Don't gamble. Collect your heart and save some money to marry a daughter-in-law. Look at our Ben. We're going to marry a daughter-in-law during the Chinese New Year, and you're all about the same. This sentence made me want to find a crack in the ground and scold him 10,000 times in my heart. Sister, do I marry a daughter-in-law or not? Who doesn't know that you can count the number of times your family eats meat all year round? You look at fucking Ben, as thin as a mouse, and has the face to say, I don't know which blind girl married into your family and suffered. I didn't save any money, but I ate, drank, and played. It's worth it. Unlike your family, you have been searching all your life, and you even calculate your breath. The more I think about it, the more angry I get. I was forced by the debt collector to be out of breath, but you old boys still blocked me. After scolding over and over again all night, I decided to do it. Don't blame me. It's the thing that messed with me first. Aren't you rich? I'll make all your money mine. I teach you that you can't buy a house and marry a daughter-in-law. I can't get through it anyway. It's better to fight. At noon that day, I knocked on the door. Old man Henry was alone, and he poured me water with a smile and asked me what was wrong. I got straight to the point. Uncle Henry, I think you were right yesterday. I should save some money to marry a daughter-in-law, but I don't have a penny in my hand now, and I don't have the capital to start a small business. Can you lend me some money? The smile on the old boy's face faded suddenly, and he smacked his mouth. TSK, you see that it's really not the right time for you to come. I'm still looking for someone to borrow money to make up for the house. Ben borrowed some from his two good friends. If you don't believe me, ask. You know the two young men who often come to our house to play. I sneered in my heart, and I knew that this old boy would not lend me money. I was already notorious in this community, and I couldn't borrow a penny anyway. But I still had a smile on my face. Ah, no, right? Uncle Henry's savings over the years are not enough to buy a suite. The down payment is unclear, but I don't want to take out a loan. How expensive the loan interest is. If it's the full amount, it's still making up. The full amount is still allowed? This old boy has picked so much money from between his teeth over the years. Who said that money is not saved but earned? What a fucking fuck. If all this money belongs to me, I can turn over, right? I glanced at the new computer next to the TV and lifted a red silk scarf covering the keyboard. Hey, did you buy a new computer? Alas, it's all Ben, who said that he is building this now. And there is a computer at home to find a daughter-in-law, and it cost me thousands of yuan. As Henry spoke, he quickly snatched the silk scarf from my hand and carefully covered the keyboard. This thing has to be covered. It is difficult to clean up if dust falls on it. While he was bowing his head, I pulled the VCD wire next to him and strangled him, and he couldn't say the next words again. In the end, it was his last move that angered me. Sisters, as if I had feces in my hand, touched his silk scarf and snatched it away. The VCD cable is thrown next to the TV cabinet, and it is very strong in the hand. I put it on from behind him hard. He kicked a few times, turned his head to look at me hard. His face was like a purple eggplant, and one hand desperately wanted to grab me. But I quickly tried hard in my hand, and after a while, he stopped moving. I dragged him to the master bedroom, and as soon as I put him on the ground, he slowed down again. Desperately struggling to catch me, I was startled and took a fruit knife on the bedside table and stabbed it wildly. He finally stopped moving. It seems to be dead. I just came out and sat in the living room and waited. I know that it's coming soon. His wife should come back from grocery shopping, and it's time for his son to get off work. The killing is like this. Once it starts, you can't stop the car. Anyway, 1 in 3 are the same result. I'm not having a good time. No one wants to have a good time. They all live in the opposite door. Why am I blocked by debt collection every day? Can you still buy a house and marry a daughter-in-law? Sure enough, not long after, the door rang. I quickly flashed to the door. It was an old woman, and as soon as she entered the door with a bag of vegetables, I covered her mouth and stabbed the knife in. A woman is a woman, and there is no effort. She fell soft without even snorting. I dragged her to the kitchen. Then Ben. As soon as I came in, I was stunned. He saw the blood on the ground. I saw his mother again along the bloodstains. He wanted to shout, but I didn't give him a chance. He pounced on him and wiped his neck with a knife like killing a chick, and blood shot into the ceiling like a cluster of arrows. I just watched the bloodshot. watch him flutter on the ground like a chicken with its neck wiped. I was afraid that I would hear the movement downstairs, so I quickly held him down desperately. He is thin and does not have the strength of me. He jerked it one by one. He looked at me, but he couldn't speak, and blood gushed out of his mouth. Coming out of his nose, the blood on his neck was still spraying towards the ceiling. Hit the ceiling and crackle. I didn't expect so much blood in a person's body. It took a long time too. I was half tired and rested for a while before dragging him into his bedroom. He was still pumping. I was afraid that he would not die, so I stabbed him a few more times and stabbed him in the neck with a wire. After all this, I can finally start flipping through the passbook. The house was quiet, only the sound of blood dripping from the ceiling on the ground. I started rummaging through cabinets, drawers, and the bottom of the bed. Not much cash, but I found the passbook. Once, Oliver's mobile phone password downstairs forgot and asked me to help unlock it. Henry said, "Look how troublesome you are. All the passwords in our house on my son's birthday." I will never forget it. So this passbook password should also be his son's birthday, right? For insurance, I want to find my ID card again. We haven't saved money. I don't know if it's enough to know the password to withdraw money. It was dark. Every household eats and watches TV in their own homes. I could even clearly hear Sam upstairs firmly saying, "To live well is to do meaningful things, and to do meaningful things is to live well." This sentence made me lose my mind for a while. I can't live well, so I can't let them live well. However, I found their ID card. Then you can live for a few days. Live well, with the money. Use these passbooks. Early the next morning, I went to the bank. When I entered the password, I tried to lose Ben's birthday, and it was correct. Because the password was correct, the teller only glanced at me and didn't see any difference between my face and Ben's ID. I breathed a sigh of relief, said that I was going to buy a house and get married, and took out all the money in one go. "Wait, you mean you killed this family by yourself?" Captain Gung interrupted him. "Yes. What's going on with the body with the knife in that box?" Sean was silent. "Say, what's going on?" "It's the same. I also killed." "You killed it too?" "Why?" "Because he came to Ben and happened to meet me on the narrow road at the door. I couldn't." "Sean, I paid off the debt and redeemed the car. Comfortable for a few days. But my hands itched. I went to gamble again, and I lost all my money a few times." "That's right. Ben was going to lose all the money. He was going to buy a house in a few days. No money. I thought of Ben's house again. More than a month has passed, and nothing has happened. No one noticed that Ben's family had disappeared. I thought that I must have missed something in my panic that day, and there must be money in the Ben family that I haven't found. So I went again. Sure enough, I got some money again. There is a second time with the first time. I seem to have forgotten that there was a body in that house. As if I had forgotten that I did those corpses. The corpses were as if they were still alive, and sometimes I went in to say, "Uncle Henry, Aunt Susan, I'm here again." As soon as I ran out of money, I went to Ben's house for a walk. At first, I went to the middle of the night twice, and I didn't dare to turn on the light, so I used my mobile phone to light it up. Later, I became bolder and bolder, and sometimes I went as soon as it got dark and turned on the lights generously. Generously rummaged through the drawers one by one. There's always a catch. I found an old woman's silver bracelet and a pair of gold earrings. Grandma's is really pretending to be poor. Susan is dressed in disgrace all day long, and there are so many good things at home. Thus, Ben's house became my treasure chest and warehouse. I go through it every 3 or 5 days. Later, I found out that this could create the illusion that there was someone in Ben's family, and I was even less afraid. Besides, they're all dead, and things are kept and wasted. I use it, what's wrong? But often walking by the river, always wet shoes. Last year's spring festival, the factory was on holiday. I have no money again, and I want to go to Ben's house to find some money for the new year. But after flipping through it for a long time, I really couldn't make any money, so I plan to take out the computer and sell it. To be honest, except for Susan's silver bracelet and gold earrings, I didn't dare to touch his things. Even if it was a mobile phone, I didn't dare to sell it, so I took it out, smashed it, and threw it into the river. Damn, no wonder we can't locate Ben's phone. Although we don't know how to solve cases, I also know that these physical things have owners, and it is easy to reveal the stuffing when sold. But I couldn't find any money that day, so I took a fancy to the new computer. It was this computer that led me to meet the unlucky Alex. In the past, when I didn't carry heavy objects in my hands, I would retreat quickly. I took the monitor and the console that day, and the movement was a little slower, and before I could close the door, Alex came. He was a little surprised when he saw me at the door. "Sean, are you there too? Ben is at home, right?" "Ah, yes, at home." I was holding the display in my hand, the door was half closed, and the host was still in the door. "What are you doing with the computer?" "Ah, that's—" Wei Ben said no. "Let me sell." I thought quickly, what should I do? What to do? Why did the computer you just bought sell? Did he not have enough money to buy a house? He asked me to borrow money some time ago, and I said that I would pay him a salary to make up for it. And then he never came to work, and I didn't see anyone after coming several times. Alex said as he pushed the door. "When I hear this, what? Came to send money? This is great." I pushed the display hard at his back, and we both fell into the house together, and before he could react, I kicked him on the door, and with my backhand, I put him on the ground with my backhand and grabbed his neck with both hands. I kept pinching, desperately pinching, until I almost broke my neck. I found 10,000 yuan from him. It's enough for the new year. Then I thought about it, stuffed the knife I had used to kill people into his hand, and put him in a box. That's right, I'm doing this to blame him. If Ben's family is finally found one day, they will think that Alex killed the person, and I might be able to save my life. What? You asked me why I put in the box. Didn't I want to confuse you? In this case, you would think that Alex returned to the scene after killing someone and then heard someone knocking on the door and was so scared that he hid in the box. Because when I was rummaging through the boxes in the house, someone knocked on the door more than once, and I had long been optimistic about that box. And if someone from outside broke into the door, I would hide in that box, and then I would set up such an ecstasy array for you according to my idea. Whether it can be done or not, it is like this. Anyway, I tried my best. If I can confuse you, my life should not end. And if I can't confuse you, then I will live to the end. When I pinched him, his eyes widened. When I closed the lid, it was still open, so I had to close the glass again. "Officer, I really didn't want to kill him. He delivered it to the door himself." At the end of the interrogation, I couldn't help but ask him the last words. "Well, what if David met you at the door that day?" "What else?" "Same as Alex. Anyway, I have no way out.